Welcome to IT Nation Wise Up, the podcast that skips the sales pitch, gives you valuable insight to take back to your business with every episode. So I'm Matt Topper, here with Vicky Bruns, and we have a very special guest on today, Mr. Colin Knox from Gradient. Colin, how's it going?
It's going really good, really good. You guys?
We're doing good.
We're
been
doing
a crazy
well.
Week, but
I'll say it's been a crazy couple of weeks.
It has. Hey, Colin, have you subscribed to the IT Nation Wise Up podcast yet?
I haven't. Maybe I'll go do that right now.
Oh, that's such a great idea. Everybody else listening in, make sure that you follow Colin and subscribe so that way you get all the great content that comes from this podcast for MSPs, for this amazing community. All right. My spiel is done.
I love it. Completely shameless.
Did that.
So, Colin, just for you, did you notice what shirt I'm wearing today? Still got my Gradient stuff.
Nice, the strings and the hoodie. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah. Can I ask, Colin? Is that a Canadian Roots shirt?
No, it's not. It's whatever the swag company had available that was relatively comfortable and cost effective. We'll say.
Okay.
Yeah. We did.
Okay, so it's not just relatively comfortable though. Like the Gradient stuff is some of the best swag around. Wherever you got this from, we need to get everything from it from now on.
We got lots of good stuff. It's funny, we were talking before the show. We do very few events now. And we probably haven't given out actual clothing swag at events for at least 2 years. And we were at a show last week, and there was a few people wearing Gradient shirts there. We're like, holy crap! They're like, we always wear them. They're so comfy. We just like them. It's like, hey, maybe we should get back to buying T-shirts and sending them to people if everybody's going to keep wearing them.
If they're nice and they last a long time, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I know the investment is expensive too. I mean, I one of my favorite jackets that I wear everywhere is an Open Text Webroot jacket. Yeah. It's a North Face jacket, and it's so comfy. I wear it on vacation. I wear it all the time.
Yeah.
So vendors
stuff and it works.
Yeah, and also MSPs. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this, guys. Do you know any MSPs that are doing the swag game right for their clients?
For clients?
Yeah.
We never did that.
No? Okay.
No, we had some good stuff for employees, polo, sweatshirts, T-shirts, stuff like that. I can't remember ever giving anything out to a client. And if I'm putting myself in the client mindset, honestly, I can't imagine wearing my MSP's swag, except for mowing the lawn or working out or something, to be totally honest.
Probably. I remember man, I've been in the space. This is my 20th year in the space now. It's nuts.
Wow. Congratulations. That's a long time.
That's awesome.
Long time. But
you don't look like you've been in it for 20 years.
Right?
That makes you feel better.
I just lost all my hair dealing with MSPs and end customers. It's no, just kidding. But I remember in the early days, we gave mouse pads to people. Mouse pads aren't even a thing anymore. Right? Everybody uses touch pads or just with laser mice and stuff. But we used to give branded mouse pads. And then I want to say there was some coasters we did for people when everybody was working in office. Just things like that, like keyboard cleaners and stuff. But
mouse things that people can keep you top of mind. That's brilliant.
We did the mouse because the mouse pads had the support phone number and the email.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Got it.
That was the one that always made sense.
So 20 years you've been on this entrepreneurial journey through MSP land. So tell us where you got your start.
I started, I was working for an international oil and gas services company. I live in oil country, oil and gas town in Canada here, but it was this global oil and gas service company. I worked as an IT person, a systems administrator there. And they made this decision. They were going to consolidate all their IT services and shared services into their headquarters in Houston. And so I got a job offer and a relocation offer for me to move out to Houston. And I don't even remember how old I was now. And I'm not going to do the math, but I was young. I would like call it 20, 21 years old. And I was like, there's no way I'm not going to go move to Houston. Like, that's crazy. So I resigned before they fired me. I guess that was stupid too. I should have waited for a package. But I resigned and I found a job with this small IT support outfit called Twin Solutions. And I did an interview with them. Do you guys have Denny's in the States? Like,
Oh,
We do.
yeah.
We
Yes,
do.
we
Yeah.
So my interview was at a Denny's with these guys, and it was a man and a woman were the co-founders and partners and owners in the business. And I met them. They had one other employee, so I was employee number 4 there. And yeah, it was a crash course in all things. So that was 2004. I started working there, and man, learning SBS 2003 and going through and learning all of those things, and going from dealing with, office, our smallest office at the company that I'd worked at was like 170 people, right? So going from that to like dealing with clients that are 10, 15, 20 people in size was interesting, but picked that stuff up really quick. We had lost one of our better clients to a larger, they were like 15 people at the time, IT company. And that client sang nothing but my praises. So that company came in and was like, hey, we'll want you to come work here. So I jumped ship and I went over there, and I worked there for 3 years. That company was called IT Matters. Everybody called it It Matters. And yeah, I worked there for a period of time. That one grew up to about 30-ish employees while I worked there. And I kind of
Can I ask a question, Alita? So you said that you were at an MSP and then you were essentially poached, right, to go over to another MSP. What was the reason why you decided to go? Was it a career growth opportunity or?
2 things. One, I like money, so I took more money. And the other was it got really annoying. So really small business, like there was 4 of us. The 2 owners, they couldn't get along. Like they were oil and water, those 2. Like just they'd argue about everything. They did not like each other. I don't know why they were ever in business together. And I even told them that when I left. But yeah, it was so wild, right? Like it was like being a kid watching your parents fight all the time at work. And it's like, okay, well, I'm out with her for the day and I just hear her, I'll keep my language clean, but complaining about everything that he did and stuff about him. And I'm like, no, I think, okay. And then you'd be out doing something with him and he's just going about her and stuff. And so that was pretty annoying. So yeah, it worked out good. I was trying to find what my next step would be. And those guys came in and offered, and they said, how much do you make? And I told them 10 grand more than I was making then. And they really wanted me. So they added another 5 on top of that. And I was happy. So yeah, I did that. And I grew through the ranks there. I went from being a field tech to their head of service within would have been kind of 2.5 years. Went through the motions, a job similar to what Topper had for a while at his MSP, did the special projects and everything. And then just seeing how it was all going. That company was a member of HTG3, I want to say it was. So one of the very first groups with HTG. And I remember I got sent out as the head of service to Dallas for the big HTG meeting. And I'm talking with all these grand American MSPs out there about what is this managed services stuff you guys are talking about? What are you doing? And getting a whole bunch of learning. And I went back and I said, guys, nobody does this here. Like seriously, nobody in Canada did managed services at that point. And this is probably, about 2008, early 2008. And nobody was doing it. And I was like, I'm going to make a business case. I'm going to build a plan. We got to jump on this. They said, okay, go nuts. And so I built this whole plan, everything out. I talked to Jameson West was in my group, and I was on the phone with him all the time and talking about stuff. And then I was emailing with Arlen and like, how do we do this? And we figure this out. I like everything. And I took it to them and they're like, nope, we're not going to do it. What got us here is break fix and ad hoc and time block hours. And so I probably stewed with it for maybe 2 or 3 months. And I was like, screw this, I'm going to do it myself. And so I did. I teamed up with a business partner, started my own. It jumped off. I mean, we were, in the first, 5 months, we were about 300 grand in revenue. And then there's a whole schmozzle of stuff with business partnership that fell apart. So I said, screw this. And I did it myself again. And yeah, I did my MSP I ran it for 5 years. We hit 4 million in revenue while I was running it. I owned it still for another 1.5 years after that when I left to join onto the vendor side and sold it and been on the vendor side ever since. So yeah, it's been a journey. So
what was that like going from the MSP side to the vendor side, right? It's just a whole different part of the world.
It is.
What made you do that?
So unlike some people in the industry who have been like, higher ranked people at an MSP and then jumped over to work at a large vendor like ConnectWise, something like that. I had built a product for my own MSP. So I had started a company to build a software product for my MSP. I had casually tossed it out into the ether to see if anybody else was interested. As luck would have it, there was like a couple hundred MSPs that somehow found it and started buying it and paying for it on their own. And so we kind of got the kick in the butt to start supporting it because we didn't support it. We didn't do it was any features we built was just for us. And so we had about 200 partners that were saying, you going to support this or not? Are you going to start building this stuff or not? So another ConnectWise illusion. I was at Automation Nation in 2014, and I was walking around there with Matt knows my business partner Ryan, and we were a top lab tech partner. I was lab tech at the time, and we're sitting there and we're talking with Greg Burke, and these guys start walking by.
Wait, hold on. For everybody that's listening in that doesn't know who Greg Burke is, he was like the godfather of lab tech and used to walk around the Automation Nation events.
Yeah, with the green cape.
With the green cape with the logo, the art logo on it, right? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Sorry. Keep going.
So we're talking to him because we were a top lab tech partner, just chatting about stuff. And these people walked by and they go to me and Ryan. They're like, you guys are the Passportal guys. Like, what? Like, you recognize us? And then Greg was like, you're the Passportal guys? We're like, you know about Passportal? And he was like, yeah. And we were like, oh my God. And he's like, when are you going to do something with that? And that was the kick in the butt moment that we left that event. And it was like, no, he'll stay at the MSP. I'm going to spin off and just do Passportal. And the rest was history. And we teamed up. We started out just bringing Dan Wensley on as an advisor to the company. And then we ended up hiring him in to come in and head up sales and marketing for us. And we got into ConnectWise and did a whole OEM deal with ConnectWise. And it kind of just, went wild from there and ended up having a fruitful exit in 2019. And then was dumb enough to start something up again after all that. So, yeah.
I remember first meeting you and Dan when I came into the vendor partnership side of ConnectWise, and I do remember intimately the SKUs that we worked on together. There's always the sides of the business that are like the things you have, that are just you got to do it. And I do not miss SKU creation that much.
Oh man, I remember that. You guys came back and you're like, we need actual SKUs to link up in our super, mature systems and everything. And yeah, Dan and I just sat at a computer with a spreadsheet. We're like, what are we going to call this one? I don't know. Let's come up with this code name, numbers, letters. Here we go.
ABC 1, 2, 3. Boom.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Like, here's the acronym of the product. Here's the year. Here's the number of seats. Yeah, it was fun. But yeah, lots of lessons learned out there.
I was just listening to another live stream that the IT Nation did a few days ago, and Craig Fulton was using the term accidental entrepreneurs, that a lot of MSPs become accidental entrepreneurs. And so it sounds like the initial entrepreneur journey that you went on was accidental, but yeah. I think it's probably safe to say that the others weren't so much accidental, right? Can you kind of explain that thought process, Colin? And
yeah, I think I use the same term all the time, right? We've got all these accidental entrepreneurs that, and not by any derogatory manner, but there's a lot of business owners and not so many business people in the industry, right? Where they own the company, but they don't have that same and haven't developed yet all the business acumen. And I think there's some key things that separate people off is, the ones that stumble into it because they just want to be their own boss. I want to work for myself, right? And then there's the ones that come into it saying, I actually want to build a business. It's not just about working for myself. It's not just about making a few more bucks. It's really make some money and really build something here that is bigger than just me, right? And I think the people that can step into that frame of mind that there's more value to be had in building something bigger than you and focus on building a business instead of being your own boss is really where the switch starts to flip. And that's, I think, what happened for me, right? Is I went in it to be my own boss, not have to deal with, being told what to do, maybe make a little bit more money. And then I was kind of forced into having to build a business bigger than me when, we brought on a bunch of customers decently. And then, near the tail end of our first year, one of our clients, which honestly was like 20 people, they went and did a reverse takeover of a 350 person public company. And they came to us and said, you're our IT company, like staff up and buck up and get us a new contract because you got to do this. And that was kind of our, oh shit moment, right? Oh, sorry. I don't know what ConnectWise's filter rules are, but it's what it was for us, right? And so it was like, all right, let's hire some more people. Let's set some levels of maturity to the business. And the next part was, I can't be walking around as, the person in a golf shirt and khakis crawling under people's desks to replug their computers and clean mouse balls and stuff like that. I gotta elevate myself and be someone that, all of our team and our technicians respect and look up to and trust, and that the clients have a feel that, somebody's at the helm of this, that this thing isn't going to disappear overnight, that this is a well-run business and they're not going to be out looking for a new IT provider at any point in time. So that's what happened for me. And then we got the kick in the butt moment with Passportal and did a quick evaluation of size and scale of opportunity of, selling IT services in a million-ish person city at the time, or sell software to every company around the world. And we chose that path, which was super cool, and another whole swath of learnings. But yeah.
So let's say you're someone going down this road or thinking about it. You have an idea. Maybe you have some kind of MVP that you've been working on in your spare time. Is your advice to someone thinking about the accidental entrepreneur style that many of these channel companies start under, should somebody with an idea try and figure that out on their own, or are they better off trying to find a business partner or someone to handle that side?
I think business partnership is not easy. Right? It is not easy. And it can be easy if you have the right partner. So I guess I'll reframe that finding the right business partner and choosing the right business partner is not easy. Much like choosing your spouse is not easy, right? Marriage which could be easier. It's never going to be easy, but it can be a lot easier with the right partner. And it can be hell with the wrong partner. It's the same thing in business. I think, you look at where we are in the world and the digital age now with, Jesus, what's happened with AI over the last year. You don't even need to build an MVP or proof of concept. You don't even need to find a co-founder or CTO anymore. Like, dude, ChatGPT will build this crap for you in enough of a working prototype, right? Like, I played with stuff, and in an hour and a half, I made a freaking video game with custom graphics, all done, everything else, like, so easy to do. And I haven't written a line of code in, oh God, probably 20 something years now. But yeah, so you don't need that, right? I think market validation is the biggest part of it now, right? If you go, don't be spending a ton of money, don't be remortgaging your house, don't spend your life savings and stuff on something that you haven't validated. My biggest thing is it takes no money to spin up even a landing page on GoDaddy with a domain for like $20 and go and try and sell it. See if people join your wait list. See if somebody's like, yeah, I'm gonna buy that. Awesome. Here's some pre-sales. Sign yourself up for Stripe and charge them some money. See if they actually put their credit card in, right? And then bust your hump building a prototype for them to use something. It's so easy to do these days. I think it's the reason that almost most businesses seem to just stall out is they'll talk and talk and talk about all these things that they want to do, but then they won't ever go and do it. It doesn't even have to be hard stuff to do, right? Like, everybody will complain and whine about, oh, I got to clean out the garage this weekend, or I'm going to do it next week, and I'm going to do it. It's not that hard once you get in it. Go blast some music, put on the gloves, and get through it, and you're done it in a couple of hours, right? And it's a total different experience, but it's that initial pain of just like, okay, I'm gonna do it, that stops so many people.
So is it more of like building a habit, essentially, of saying, I'm going to allocate time and I'm going to be really intentional with that time to invest in this concept?
Yeah. I think it's being intentional about things. I forget exactly what the person called it. There was somebody on a podcast or a video or something that they were like, they have this theory, I think it was like jump on two kind of idea, right? They won't even give themselves 3 seconds to think about something. If they have interest, if they're curious about it, it's like jump on two. Just boom, go to it. Don't take that extra 3 seconds to think. Don't, just go and do it. It's never going to be as painful as you think, right? Like, that's the whole thing. And then, it's funny, I just saw a thing, I think it was Will Smith actually did this thing on some show or whatever we were talking, and it's the whole
not the Oscars, not the Oscars.
No, not that. Not nobody's wife was in anybody's name was in anybody's mouth. But it's based on the quote that bliss is on the other side of fear, right? Everything you want is on the other side of fear. And he tells the story about like skydiving. You're worried. You lose sleep the night before you go skydiving. You're losing sleep, or you're super nervous and strung out. You can't even eat breakfast that morning, and then you're like stressed out driving out to the field where you're gonna get on the plane and everything else. You're stressed on the takeoff. You're stressed on everything, and then you get right to the edge of the plane and you jump, and you're not even stressed at that point. Like, you were stressed the whole way along, right? But that seems to be what cripples most people, is this. They're already playing out in their mind how bad it's going to be if they fail, but
you haven't even started yet.
Nobody even needs to know that you failed, right? Like, it's not like you're going to put a landing page out, or you're going to reach 10 million people with this offer that, hey, what do you think about this? You're going to call like 5 or 10 people, and who gives a crap if those 10 people come back later and be like, did you ever do that? No? Oh, okay, cool, whatever, right? But just so many people talk, and they just never do it. And that was, it's why our MSP grew fast. I said, one, we're actually going to do MSP in a region where nobody else is doing MSP. And we were the first company to do it. And we led the trail for that here. And then when everybody else was doing it, we're like, well, how are we going to differentiate ourselves? We're going to be cybersecurity experts. And we went and certified our whole team on all this stuff, cybersecurity, and we had ethical hackers, and we had pen testers, and we had, CISSPs, and we got all of the firewall certifications, and that took us the next way, right? But you'll go to shows still and talk to MSPs. I'm sure Matt does all the time, and you hear like, oh, I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to take this course, and I'm going to sign up for this, and I'm going to join that program, and we're going to do this. But then you'll see them a year or 2 years later, and they're still in the same boat because they haven't just gone and done what they were going to do, right? And it's tough that way. But for me, that's just the biggest thing. Just take action and do it, and be intentional about it.
So one thing we talked about leading up to this discussion was, as you've gone through different companies and different organizations, you've occasionally had to make difficult decisions like deciding to pivot on your product line or just changing the way you do something. What goes through your head? And really, this is for anyone listening who's new to the business world, right? Maybe the engineer turned entrepreneur. How do you decide when to do that? And how do you get over on maybe throwing out what I thought was my $1 million idea?
Right. So I think there's a lot that goes into it, right? I think I've seen enough stories about, the greatest business turnarounds in history, and everybody thought that the individual that headed that turnaround was absolutely crazy. The way that they cannibalized most of the business to do it, and risk everything. You got probably the biggest story with Steve Jobs coming back into Apple and, closing down so many lines of business and cannibalizing that business to really go in a different direction. You look at what Satya Nadella did at Microsoft to turn them around when he came in, and cannibalizing all this traditional, licensing and sales and perpetual stuff to go, we're going full cloud, we're going full, subscription based. And then you hear all the inverse stories of, the companies that didn't do that. You have the Kodaks that could have taken and run with digital photo imagery and everything and had all the patents for it, but they weren't willing to cannibalize their film sales, right? The consumables business. And so I always latched onto that type of stuff and kind of clue into reading the tea leaves or what's written on the wall. And, we went through a motion with that at Passportal where we were solely a password management company. And, notably IT Glue in the industry was just dominating in documentation. And we were losing partners to them because their password management was good enough, right? Back then, they didn't have the encryption. They didn't have auto rotation. They didn't have any of the stuff that we did. But because it was paired with documentation, it was more convenient and efficient, and we were losing business there. And, you had stuff like that. You look at SSO was really starting to come in. I mean, SSO still hasn't done crap in our space, but that's fine. But you had federated service, right? Log in with M365 into everything and stuff like that. And so, kind of looked and said, what is the probability or opportunity for a solely password management type company in the space? And my bet was, in 3 to 5 years, probably not much. And there's lots of people in the industry now that would say I'm wrong. Some of them live in Tampa. But it's totally fair, but that's the juncture that we were at, right? And as a business, we had to look at that and decide, okay, well, we're going to pivot and move into, what we framed as knowledge management with documentation and password management and stuff. And as we did that, we saw all of these partners that we lost to IT Glue come back to us and buy more from us because we had all that stuff. Yeah. We had other, companies that were already partners that came to us and did stuff. There was other, documentation solution and other partners that were like, awesome, this is finally the best of both worlds. And the business exploded overnight with that. And then we went from, a reasonable growth rate company to an explosive growth rate company with investor term sheets being thrown at us, bidding wars to acquire us going down, and, worked out really well for us. I mean, our biggest learnings around pivots and stuff has been at Gradient here. It's been, we're 4 years this month in business. And, the path that we were on to begin with was an ambitious and audacious one to start, and got crazy funding up front, and we got to run full speed ahead at that for a while. And then, we had market headwinds come into play. Capital markets closed up, economic uncertainty came in, and nobody was investing in or buying into companies that had this great future potential of monetization, but no current revenue and revenue trajectory, right? And so, yeah, we had to make tough changes, and some of our very tough and painful decisions turned into rewards for other companies. I mean, you guys landed Matt, and a bunch of other channel vendors landed a bunch of other just key people that have had massive impacts at their organizations. But we had to kind of abrupt halt, turn around, and focus in on one area where we could generate revenue and create a sustainable business. And so, we did that. And I'd say even over the last two-ish years here, there's been even more evolutions of the business of just listening to the market, right? There's one thing about, you hear about certain entrepreneurs, and you got like Mark Zuckerbergs and stuff like that are so bullheaded, Travis Kalanick at Uber, that I don't care what anybody says, I don't care what any market tells me, I'm going to make this happen. And they do, and they push it through, and God love those people, because we don't have to take taxis anymore. We don't have to, email pictures anymore or anything else like that. But that's amazing stuff. I think where most people should sit is listen to what the market's telling you, right? If nobody's buying, if people are churning or not, not sticking with the product or not using the product, listen to that. Reach out to them, ask them questions. Why? If as an MSP, if you go out and you're pitching some new service out to all of your customers and none of them are buying it, don't just say, well, shucks, this can't work. Like, go back and ask why. What's missing? What's changing and stuff. And so, we've kind of pivoted and circled around and taken a different path. And now we're on a great trajectory and moving forward as kind of a different reinvented company. But what's really cool now is that whole means to an end purpose that we had to do to get to where we are today has now allowed us to be further ahead of where we thought we would be 2 to 3 years ago, with the amount of MSPs we've got connected, the amount of data that we have, the intelligence that we can share to the industry, and some other cool stuff that we're working on now to really have an impact in the space.
So I have a question for you from an MSP standpoint. It sounds like listening and paying attention to market headwinds, watching to see what's happening, maybe looking at real data. I know there's the SLI reporting, and there's a lot of great data that Canalys puts out there, and I'm sure that there are many other that are not coming to mind at the moment. But without having like the, I guess, venture capital or like private equity cash opportunities, if you're bootstrapping it as an MSP, then how are you deciding how much money to allocate to R&D versus what's really your sweet spot and where you're generating reliable revenue in the moment?
Sounds like those people all need Gradient. No, I have kid, but yeah, it's so tough, right? I think one is just as an MSP or an MSP owner or executive, just have your head up, walk around with your head up, be looking around, right? If you're walking down the street, looking at the ground or looking at your shoes, you're gonna bump into something and hurt yourself, get hit by a car, whatever, right? You're gonna fall in the pothole. If you're up and you're looking around, you can see what's going on around you. Go out to some of the industry events. I mean, heck, most of these events as an MSP, you can be hosted at, that you're paying virtually nothing to be there outside of your time. We have all the opportunity to network with other MSPs. What are they hearing? What are they seeing? What are they experiencing? Hear from other people like Jay, if he's out, Jay McBain talking at events, and what's he seeing? What's Matt seeing from a security angle, right? You have the opportunity to hear and leverage the insights from, ConnectWise and Pax8 and all of the other companies that pay big bucks for these people to do exactly that. Monitor the market, see trends, see what's going on. But the next thing is, like, we've been preaching for 4 years now. Matt remembers, like, data is everything. If you don't have data, you don't have a clue what's going on in the industry or in your business. And so that's what we've been gearing towards. And that's, one of our latest things that we had come out with in August was, the first ever price benchmarking for MSPs, but it's data backed. It's not, a survey. And I see some other people doing some survey stuff now, but a survey is one thing. The other is we're tied right into the billing system. So we can tell these MSPs what other MSPs are charging for services where you are and at volume and stuff like that, right? To give them that opportunity to understand. And we're able to see trends of what people are, what's seeing higher adoption rates and what's typically being bundled together and stuff, to give them those insights and ideas. I think there's a lot of amazing marketing in our space, amazing marketing. And, as a business owner, I get it. And every business is selfish. Everybody only cares about themselves, right? But some of that marketing is so good that it distracts them completely away from what the best opportunities could be for them, right? The most pretty thing isn't always the most profitable or the most opportunistic for you. It's just what caught your attention. And you see a lot of those where you might be able to make 10, 15, 20% margin. That's like, oh, wow, so cool. And it's still only at $1 a pop per user type of thing. Whereas there's other solutions in this industry where you're making like 60, 70% margin on $10, $20, $30 per user per month things that maybe is a little bit less sexy and good, pretty and cool and innovative and stuff. But are you in it to build a business and make money, or are you in it to just look cool, right? Like at that point, it's clue into what's going on around you, talk, participate, be on the subreddit, be in the Facebook groups, be out at networking events, and you can be a creeper if you want and just sit there and observe and take it all and read and never. That's me. I never.
You're a creeper?
I'm a creeper. I just sit back and watch and read and be like, it's interesting, right? And it's why we did our pricing thing, actually, was we watched and we're like, wow, we're seeing a lot more MSPs asking what they should be charging for all these things. It's interesting. And then you do a scrape of Reddit and go and find 6 months worth of 1,000 different posts of MSPs asking the question. We're like, this is probably something people are interested in. So we built the thing, we put it out there, and looks like there's a lot of people interested in it, right? But if we just kept our head in the sand doing, what we're doing and everything else, that never would have come to fruition. So
I think what I'm hearing overall is get and trust real empirical data when you're making business decisions. And it's not as much of a gut thing as you might think if you get your business info from like watching TV and the movies. Like, it really is data-based, not just like I talked to this guy on the golf course and that's the only input I get.
Well, just validate where you're getting your info from. I mean, we're in a budding tech city in Canada here, but for the longest time, there were these people that built these profiles and personas of themselves and were out advising young tech companies. And they even tried giving us advice. And honestly, it took me maybe 20 minutes of digging on the internet about the person to be like, this guy hasn't achieved crap. Like, why am I taking advice from this person? That is the worst advice that I could have ever taken. And so that really sucks. But yeah, validate who you're talking to, right? Like, understand. Probably one of the best questions at an MSP event is like, hey, how big is your shop? People or revenue? Both, right? Like, I don't care if you're a 10-person shop, you're doing 2 to 3 million in revenue on that, I can learn from you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're 10, 20, 30-person shop, there's stuff to learn from. But yeah, there's a lot of people that have been in the space for longer than I have that, are still running 3-person, 4-person shops. But they're
okay with it though.
Their profile, right? And they're at every event and everything else, and they look a big show. But it's just validate who you're talking to, validate where you're getting the information from, and just give it the smell test. Like, what's the ulterior motives of why somebody might be telling me this? Is there some other reason that they would tell me this? So I just think that's what it comes down to. But having your head up, your ears open, and vetting stuff out.
Do you guys mind if we flip the script for a minute?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Okay. So part of the entrepreneur journey is figuring out how to balance your life and the business.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, Colin, because I know that you mentioned 2020 was kind of a pivotal time for your organization. And can you kind of go through the process of like lessons learned, things that you have experienced and maybe pivoted personally to be able to handle some of that burnout that can happen so often?
Yeah. I mean, your health and your mental health is so important, and understanding what you put at risk, right? Like there's so many people that are like, and even the influencers out there would say that there is no such thing as work-life balance. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, work. I've lived that life, but when you look at, I think they're actually still the most valuable company in Canada, even topping out the Royal Bank of Canada, is Shopify. And you have, Tobias at the helm of that company, who his whole life or not his whole life, but the whole journey of Shopify has been, I live by a work-life balance. I will not work past 5 p.m. I will not work on weekends. I will not, and he never conceded that stuff. I went nuts at Passportal when I worked there, and that and other things cost me a marriage and a whole lot of pain and money and everything else that went through that, right? Then there was the, after exit, and kind of just committing yourself to getting the most fruit out of that as possible and everything. And I don't know, I think I traveled 265,000 miles that year for work.
Oh my
and
goodness.
You gain a ton of weight, and you're not comfortable, and you're at health risk, and you're not happy, because you've just given everything to a company and nothing to yourself. So I think, work-life balance has to happen. There will always be times when something comes up in the business that's got to come first, and you have to give the extra time and put in all of the hours and sacrifice things in your personal life. But you can't let that be all the time, right? Give me a second here.
He's getting choked up. No, he's got a.
No, I'm
got
still
an
just
itch.
getting over it. I'm just getting over a cold, and now talking lots and getting a dry throat.
Well, you're hitting the mute button at the perfect moment.
Yeah.
So
You're right. You got that cough button lined up.
But yeah, I think, we look at 2022, we were running hard. We were doing stuff. But again, I'd say we took some advice and guidance against our better judgment and maybe over-rotated on stuff. So I think there's always that moment to take a pause, look at things, and take a more calculated approach to stuff, and realize what's worth it and what's not, really, at the end of the day, and what you're willing to have as your non-negotiables versus, what you're going to commit to your business. So.
Mm-hmm. No, it's such a good point. I mean, Colin, you know most of the story. I ended up at Gradient after burning out doing MSP work, and it's I almost feel like it can be impossible to learn those lessons without going through it. People have talked about, and before I even got to the burnout phase, knew that it was coming, and I feel like you almost sometimes can't see it coming until
you're
go through it. Right? No matter how many times or how many people warn you, like, don't go down this road, you're going to go down it anyway.
Yeah. And I think it's play it out with what it's worth to you, right? There are employees of companies that do that. And do you have that good of stock options and salary and everything else? And you're giving all of you to a business. Are they going to return the favor or not, right? And the sad thing is, and I run a business, at the end of the day, people will be charged with doing what's in the best interest of the business, not what's the most, ethical or, fair or any of those
Right.
things. I always try to be.
They're still for-profit organizations, right?
But
that
they are,
trying
right?
to-
And
yeah.
your legal obligation is to the business, not to the people, right? And so if you're an employee, you need to realize that. And even as owners and business owners and top executives, it's the same thing. At the end of the day, it's still just a job, and it's not your life. It's not your everything, right? Like, sure, it's your baby, but that baby isn't taking care of you when you're older. That, it's not a thing of like, you're not taking pictures and video of its first steps and stuff. So what are you sacrificing along the way for that? When it's gone, right? And there's certain things that you can't give. You don't go and just tell reminiscing stories about what your business did all the time, right? You're talking about just other experiences, the trips you went on, the shows you saw, the things that you experienced, right? So yeah, I think it's kind of a gut check at point in time where you realize what are you willing to give to the business, and what's the business going to be willing to give to you.
So Colin, I think we're almost out of time. There's usually a question that we ask, but I almost want to phrase it a different way for this episode, Vicky. And I think the way that I'll ask it, usually we ask, what's one habit you would start or stop for just improving your business if you give someone advice? But I would say for this episode, I'll ask you, what is just one takeaway or one piece of advice? Like if you could give someone starting a business, someone maybe coming from our industry, going out to hang up their own shingle and work for themselves, what advice would you give them?
Oh man, I have so many qualifying questions for you on this question, but I'll hold them off.
Very open-ended.
I think the first would be the Nike slogan, just do it. Just go do something. The next would be, if you're going into a space or a category that exists, figure out what you do different. Figure out what's different about you that isn't something that matters to you, but that matters to your customer.
Or to the point that you were making earlier too, Colin, about finding a place in the market where there's a need.
Yeah. Absolutely, right? So I think that's the thing, is just do something about it. Figure out what's different about you and how you're going about it that matters to the customer. And if it's something brand new, don't bet the bank on it. Don't bet the farm, right? Like, just try it. Try and pre-sell a few people and take it all the way down to see if they're willing to give their credit card. Because a lot of people say, yeah, I'd buy it, until they're faced with actually buying it. Right? It's super easy. Oh, would you buy this if I built it? Yeah, I would. I can say that because you haven't built it yet. It doesn't exist. I can't pay for it, right? Sell something as if it exists and see if they'll pay for it, and actually get them to pay for it. Before you leave your job, before you risk something big, before you invest too much money into something. But I think those are the things. The companies that do the best are the ones that do something different, and have a story that resonates more with the end customer and what matters to them than what the other companies do, and get that proof that people are willing to pay for it.
Well said. And if anybody is tuning in and listening to Colin's advice and you have some great success stories to share, please reach out to Matt and I, because maybe you could be a future guest on the IT Nation Wise Up podcast.
Yeah, good success stories or valuable failure lessons. Those are equally useful.
I have lots of valuable failures. Maybe I'll come back and talk about all of those.
I think we all do.
We'll have a part two, and you can definitely come back and share those, Colin.
Sounds good.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for this amazing episode of IT Nation Wise Up, the podcast that is all about driving your business forward. And so everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Colin, we appreciate you. Thanks for coming on the show. And until next time, folks, remember that every day is a chance to learn something new.